I've learned from the time zones that this is the least attended time. So we'll just try and make the other ones at different times to make it so that people will come. And if you are here, please tell us where you're from. Anyway, I want to introduce my friend Alana, who is a director of technology. And I'm going to take off this thing so you can see Alana bigger. She's the director of technology at Pecanico Hills in Westchester, New York. And hello from Toledo. Hi. Westchester, New York, which is just outside of New York City. And she is the director of technology at a pretty diverse school, one that I'm going to let her tell the story of. And then we're going to get into the times when it's good and not so great to be using AI. So, Alana, tell us the story of how your school came to be.
Oh, like the
Rough.
history of our school? Yeah.
Mhm.
So our school district, I live in downtown Manhattan, which is one of the most urban areas of the world. And I work in what's considered a rural school district. And that's because of population density. It's just outside of the city, and it is rural because the land around us is preserved, and it's called the Rockefeller Preserve, and it was preserved by the Rockefellers. They actually live down the street, and they send their children to our public school district. We don't have any school-age children there right now, but they do put their children through our public school district. And we have the actual richest of the richest families in the world, some of the most affluent families. And we also have the extreme opposite of that. And we have students that live in low income Section 8 housing. And we have about 325 students in one building, and we represent over 100 countries. And we have a large population of, I don't want to say ENL students because they do graduate out of the program, but a large population of non-English speaking families because they never usually graduate out of that program. So we're incredibly diverse. We're only 38% white. And just to give you a juxtaposition, 10 minutes down the road is Chappaqua, which is mostly, very affluent and very white. So that's 10 minutes away from where I work. And I live in New York City. So very, very, very diverse population that I serve.
So I have a question about, I think you told me that the Rockefellers actually even provide some housing so that kids can have this good schooling. Is that true?
So they did help with putting up the Section 8 housing. They did help support that, but they also did help support building our school. There is a plaque outside that says erected by John D. Rockefeller, and we have we have a foundation, and they're very, very generous in opening up access to all of the things that we can work with them on. Like, they have their archives, and we get to work with the Rockefeller archivists and have access to their archives and learn about primary sources. We get to go exhibit our students' art in the Rockefeller Art Center right down the street. So they've been really, really helpful in helping us provide opportunities for our students they never would have had if they didn't live in that area. But also, what I probably didn't tell you is we do have a lot of other organizations and companies that are in the grounds, like Regeneron, IBM, and their taxpayer dollars do also go towards our public school funding as well. So that does supplement it as well.
So then for your funding per kid, do you have a little bit higher then because of that? Or does that affect it?
I think the last time I asked my superintendent, I think we have the highest per pupil spending in New York State, but it's
Ooh.
so crazy because that is not our population. It is not our we're just so small that we're an anomaly, but you have to come visit. It's really special.
Trying. Okay, so we're going to start today with when does AI hurt and when does it help? I'm going to be off screen for a second, but this is me. You guys know me, so I'm going to move away. But this has information about Alana. She does something with Students for Innovation. I'm going to let her talk about that really quick, and then I promise we're going to get started. But I'm going to give you these slides so that if you want to know more about Alana, you can find her on LinkedIn, things like that. You'll be able to do that. So Alana, tell us about your Students for Innovation.
So I co-founded Students for Innovation with two other students. And they really just came to me and they were like, education, you talk a lot about students, but you very rarely ask them what they think. And it's very true. And so I was like, you're right. What do you have to say? And they had a lot to say. So we co founded this organization. This week, we're actually hosting a virtual summit that's led entirely by students. Today, we just had 2 sessions. I'll post the recordings later. One was my own AI junior, which is third and fourth grade students that are learning about pretty advanced topics like bias discrimination, anthropomorphizing, sycophantic vibe coding. They're 8 and 9 years old, and oh, Bedford, that's right by me. And so that was one session today, and the other session was really awesome. It was about this school in Florida that has a food lab, and they use AI in all kinds of incredible ways. And I think I'm going to save some of the stories
Okay.
for later, but that was really, really impressive on how they use it in an entrepreneurial type of way. And so there's a free summit that's going on. It's studentsforinnovation.org, and it's completely free, led by students with student presenters. And every decision I make as a director is grounded in my why is the students. And I think that's why I resonate with Holly a lot, because our why is students and helping prepare them for their future. And I'm so connected to them. Like every day, students ask me to have lunch. I designate the middle school lunch period and the elementary lunch period to have lunch with kids every day. And I lead 3 clubs after school, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And you learn a lot from the students because they are not filtered and they tell you everything. And when you're sitting at the admin meeting and you know what's actually happening, it's really probably the best 1 hour you could spend is just lunch or a club with students.
And to hear how they are thinking about technology, how they're thinking about AI. And right now, both of them are kind of in the news. I just watched a TikTok that said LA Unified, just near me, is going to take technology or screen time away from K through 2 students. And Alana was just talking about that she's using it with third and fourth graders. And while I can understand where people are afraid about kids being on a screen that early, when you hear the stories that we'll tell, it just makes it hurt to think that you're not listening to the other side. And it's not any of our audience. I'm obviously preaching to the choir, but for other people. And so I wanted to start by giving you guys just another story from a classroom. And this one comes from and I do PD around this stuff too. But this one comes from a 6th grade teacher in just outside of New York City as well that I was working with. And this teacher, she understands pedagogy. And she did these 2 things I just want you to think about. And in the comments, I want you to tell me, is this a good use of AI? Like, what do you think of what I'm about to tell you? So she's working with 6th grade students, and she wanted them because they're learning about Greece and Athens and all of these things right now in their humanities course. I think it's in humanities or social studies. And she wanted them to read something to go with that. And that is Antigone. Now, I'm talking about like barely 12-year-olds reading Antigone, something that is a 10th grade text. But she knew that if she used AI, she could help bring them into this rich text, along with her just being one of the best teachers I've ever seen. So I'm in her class, and she had just gotten done reading the prologue of Antigone. And first thing she did is she used a chatbot to give them a quiz. And I was like, that's interesting. She's giving them a quiz. And I go over to her and I'm like, what are you doing with this quiz? And we didn't get to continue because a kid asked a question, and then I just watched them take the quiz. And the next thing that was in the same chatbot was for them to then interview the 2 main characters in the prologue. They're these sisters, and it's something with injustice is about to happen, and we're getting the scene of everything. And so they're interviewing those 2 main characters, and they're really engaged, and I'm watching on my screen what they're asking, what they're saying back, all of these things. And it's like so good. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And she even came over with her screen, and she's like, look at this. And so afterwards, she had the kids come out of interviewing the characters, and then they began to have a conversation in the class. And the class is set up in almost like a Harkness for people who are in independent schools kind of desk scenario, where it's like in the middle, she could walk in the middle and they're kind of in a group around her. And the things these 12-year-olds were saying about Antigone was like next level. And I knew it came from the way that they interviewed the two women characters, because I watched what they asked and I heard that come out. And then afterwards, she was having them discuss, and they were really going to town and being like, I don't agree with you, and here's why. And the whole discussion was next level. Then the next thing they did is read the, I guess, chapter 1 of Antigone. And so I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking, I wonder why she did a quiz and then had them go in and just interview the two characters, because she's not getting the data she needs from that quiz. So I wait until they leave. I come back and I said, why did you put a quiz in there? Like, what was the point? And she's like, well, I needed to make sure they all understood at some level. So when I asked a question, it would come back and say, no, that's not right. And here's why. I needed to make sure they were at the same level when they went in to interview the two sisters. Otherwise, this interview process wouldn't have been as dynamic. And I was like, mind blown. I couldn't believe she thought to level set them so that they could interview the characters, so that that would level set the discussion. And it was really a beautiful thing. And like I've told you, activities like this only happen about 5 minutes is all that they did. They did the quiz really quick. They did the interview really quick, maybe 10. And then she told me that the next step is when they're done in reading Antigone, they're going to compare and contrast that to Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, which both apparently, I haven't read Antigone myself. I have the letter from a Birmingham jail is one of my favorite documents of all time. But both of these argue that it's a moral law higher than human law, that unjust laws not only can but must be broken. And in these two scenarios, they're going to unpack this at 12. And the way it's possible is because of these little personalized deep dives that they're able to have. So when I think about that, people are saying that we shouldn't have technology in classrooms and that it's really bad and we're going to take it out, it really hurts my soul, because these kids are getting to this next level setting, getting to the same place where they have the same mental hooks, so they can all dig into this content the same way. And her class is not full of geniuses. I'm going to just stop there because that's probably not the best way to describe them. But they are different levels of reading. They're different levels of kids who can unpack. There's certainly high levels in there, but she's able to do that. And so when I think about what people are saying right now, it really is hurtful. What she did is she really is scaffolding this to make sure that kids can get through this difficult text that is made for 10th grade. And that's how we become better readers, not by just doing level 1, DOK1 recall. It's really through that synthesis, those levels, those other levels. And that's what AI was allowing her to do. So when we look at that, and go back to the last two things that we did, where we're looking at these really strategic small moments where we can add AI on. One, and I'm going to go past the curiosity spark, but if we look at the brainstormer, which is, again, 5 minutes, and it's really being mindful of screen time when we say 5 minutes. We'll talk about the brainstorming in a second, but what we're trying to do is the exact opposite of the messages that are in the media right now. We're really trying to be thoughtful about screen time. Those kids walk in, and when it's time to open their screen and have that discussion or that quiz, they do. And I walk around, they are not off task, because we're only on that for a very short amount of time, and they're loving it. So Alana, you've been doing some research a lot about screen time. Can we stop for a second and talk about that component, because that's in the news right now?
It's crazy because I that's my topic of my second book. I just started publicly saying that, but I've been writing this book since 2024. But I personally struggled with my own digital wellness, and I really need to get myself on track, because I think we need to stop and look in the mirror before we start talking about student screen time. we need to realize that we are the ones that the students look at. And if you're looking down at your cell phone or checking your cell phone, they see it. And one kid actually stopped me in the hall and said, "Why do you get to have your phone and we don't?" "Oh, is it because you have to text message the principal?" And I was like, "It's an interesting question. Why do you ask? Did someone say that to him once before? I don't know. He's a little elementary schooler." But I think this book has taken me so long because of all the research that's in this. And I know, Holly, I had talked to you about how the American Association of Pediatrics used to have screen time limits, and they removed those limits above the age of 5. And now what they're saying is, and what I've always said, I always say, not all screen times equal. That's like, there's a few quotes that if you ask my superintendent what my quotes are, not all screen time's equal. I believe in creation versus consumption. I don't want my students on there doing the not nice way to say it is skill and drill. The nice way to say it is deliberate practice. Um, I want my students to be creators of knowledge, because at the end of the day, our job is to prepare them for the future. And the future is, right now, it's testing season, but that's not real life. We need to prepare them for what's beyond that. And so by, I think, re-looking at the screen time, it's not just screens though. So yes, it starts with screens. I've been analyzing our students' screen time and seeing what types of activities they've done in there, how the teachers evaluate their grade level screen time, and we're trying to do a little bit less consumption and a little bit more creation by the end of the school year. But I think what it really just shows is, we had a day of unplugging a few weeks ago, or a month ago now, and we're going to have a digital wellness week, and we're really focusing on balance. But I think a lot of times when people think you're taking the screen away, you're just going back to paper and pencil worksheets. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying remove the technology and go back to paper and pencil worksheets. I'm saying use technology when it's meaning and purposeful, and don't use technology when it's not enhancing learning. And I think that we're going to cover in this webinar ways that it can support and scaffold learning. And I don't ever want to take those opportunities away, because that's what technology does beautifully. And that's what AI does beautifully, is really levels the playing field and provides every student with access, right? Like, some students don't have access, whatever. And I know we were talking before this about actually just access. Like, I provide so many students with laptops and hotspots that they would literally never have access to technology at home if it weren't for the technology the school is giving them. And by removing the technology, we're removing their access, right? And that's just the lowest level access. But then when you take it to the levels of what we're going to talk about, what AI makes possible, if we're not providing every student with access to AI and AI literacy, then they're at a major disadvantage. And we're going to see a type of digital divide we've never seen before, that may not have anything to do with socioeconomic status. And it has
Well,
everything to do with access to AI literacy.
and if we can even peel back the layer and not even talk about AI, those kids that you're giving access to now are having some technical skills, that even just knowing how to create a Google Doc. If we take technology out of schools, the kids who have technology at home will have the skills to get a job later on, or to
Yeah,
do papers
yeah.
and whatever. And the kids who don't have access to technology will not get those. And
Well,
that
I
is
I
a,
live in New York City with
yeah.
all of these entrepreneurs that have their own businesses, and I have a lot of friends that went to Ivy League schools and are founders of companies. And one story that just stuck with me is one of my friends who said they were interviewing someone for a new role, and they gave them a task to complete. And someone on his team ran the test through an AI detector, and we both know AI detectors don't work, but they did that, and the person said they used AI to help them with this task. And my friend was like, why on earth would I care if they use AI? What they came up with was more creative and innovative than what anyone else on this team has ever come up with. The real world expects it and applauds it, and school does the opposite. And what I always say is, whether a student goes to college or not, whether they get a GED and go straight to the workforce, they're all going to the workforce.
Yep.
And that's our job, is to prepare them for the workforce. And if they don't know how to use this, they will not get a job. Period. They won't.
And we know that jobs that are being reduced right now are the ones that do easy tasks that are repetitive and whatever, and the jobs that are kind of lasting are the ones that take that critical thought. But like for some reason, and I just think it's just the way that at least American society is right now, is that we're just having these conversations of all or nothing. These bilateral or whatever, I'm my wording is not good today, but conversations that aren't helping any kid. They're trying to find a witch and go on a witch hunt with it. And we've seen that already with a lot of things. Another thing that, so here is when those AI moments that we've talked about, like brainstorming, it really opens access for kids. It supports this divergent thinking, like maybe I need to go over here and do this, and maybe I just need a little help because I'm dyslexic, whatever it is. Those kinds of things are happening. When we don't want to use AI is when the students are just taking the output and that's it. We don't ask them to talk about what they interviewed and the two characters from Antigone about, or just take whatever the response is. We're teaching kids to push back. Like, do you think that's what those two would say based on your reading? And so that kind of thing is where we need to watch. And so if we keep on with the AI moments, we're going to go into.
We don't go yet. I just want to tell them a funny story about brainstorming.
Okay.
So yesterday was Innovation Club. Today's AI Junior Club. And in Innovation Club, I said to the students, I had this webinar, and I said, it's about when we should and shouldn't use AI. I need your help. I want you to give me ideas. So we brainstormed, right? And they gave me a whole list of times when we should and shouldn't use AI. And then I teased them a little, and I said, I pulled up an AI, an LLM, and I said, is it cheating if I ask the AI when we should or shouldn't use AI in schools? What do you think? And they really got into a little debate about it. And what we kind of came to the conclusion was that I let them brainstorm their ideas first. And when we exhausted all ideas as a group, and then I asked the AI, then it didn't feel as wrong. But if I would have asked the AI first and taken away their own brainstorming, then they would have felt worse about it. And then once we did it, then they told me, this was funny. They're like,
and so that's right here.
AI is going to be biased. It is AI. It's obviously going to be biased of what the AI is allowed to. And then when it gave us the answer, actually the answers are pretty solid. So it was pretty funny.
And I'm sorry, I interrupted you. And I said, and that's what this says, is skipping the struggle. And they're saying, don't skip the struggle. And these kids know this. And that's because they are working with AI the same way that the kids that I work with know this too. But other kids don't, because we're just shutting down the conversation. So when it comes to feedback, really quickly, we're going to look at some cognitive reasons for feedback, because cognitive science shows that students retain information better when they receive feedback while their working memory is still engaged. So instead of just sitting there and just not, I used to fake work. When I didn't know something, I would just act like I was doing it, and so that no one knew. But instead, if I just got that feedback right away, I would not have been able to kind of go into that false scenario. Research also says that on math and writing skills, that delayed feedback allows misconceptions to solidify. We all know that because we did some math problems wrong and went to school the next day and we're like, oh, I learned that wrong then. An immediate correction stops students from practicing mistakes and reinforces accurate understanding. Only 2 more of these, but when students get quick feedback, they stay engaged. They feel more supported and are less likely to give up. That's super important for neurodivergent learners, but every time I say it's super important for neurodivergent learners, I find myself thinking in my head, but it's important for every learner. And so we need to remember that and a study on middle school students found that instant feedback inspired them to try harder and keep persisting because they kept getting the information back on where they could change. And studies show that students in classrooms where teachers provide immediate feedback consistently perform better on these standardized tests. I could do a whole documentary on what I feel
Mhm.
about standardized testing, but and I don't even understand, like, that's the problem. We are pointing at technology because there's a problem in our education system, and no one's pointing at standardized tests. They're like this. They're like, it's something else. It is
I mean,
just
Holly,
plain
do you
standardized
remember what you got on your standardized test? Like, honestly, do you know? Do you
tests.
remember? I don't think most people, I mean, don't need to answer, but I don't, if you take a moment and think, not your SATs. I'm saying, like, what did you get on your New York State test? I don't think anyone really knows. I don't think it defines who you are as a person. I don't think it follows you along in your journey. And I just, that's my question to you is, do you remember what your standardized test scores were?
Well, so speaking of students, I've learned from some students recently that they just they bubble in any answer. They're like, I'm going to put in all C's. And the more I hear that from students, I don't want them to do it. And I tell them, here's why you don't want to do it. But like, if they did all start doing that and they messed up the data, maybe we would finally get past it. Like,
I
maybe
don't
there
think
needs to
they
be
would think the data was messed up, though. They would probably,
well, they would just be like, um, they would be like, "Oh, our literacy scores are down because these tests," and then it's
yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually was the student who I drew a flower on my tests because I was like, this doesn't count. It's not going to mean that I passed this grade. So I was a little bit, I didn't do it all the time, but when I was just not having a good day, I was like, "Nah, I'm not, but I also am dyslexic, and that was a high load for me. So when we think about AI, where it's great, when we talk about the feedback we just talked about, that's perfect. But when kids just passively accept it, which is what they're doing right now when they use it at home, there's no scrutiny, and that students show uh, the lowest essay ownership after doing it with this LLM writing. And so we want to make sure that we show them where it helps. And if they do the other, that's on them. But if we don't show them these other places where it can be good, um, it's going to be problematic.
I have a lot to say about feedback.
Okay.
I really, this one for me is just a big one. So, um, I always give every AI user two roles and responsibilities. And their first job is to be a DJ and remix the content so it's reflective of their own thoughts, their own ideas, and their own voice. And their second job is to be a detective and look for bias and misinformation. But this one's really related to the feedback. So when they are using AI for feedback, they know, and like this was when I asked them yesterday, what do you guys think you should use it for and you shouldn't? They said you should not use it if it's going to take away your learning, and you should obviously like not use it when you're asking for feedback and just copy and paste it if it's not reflective of your own thoughts, your own ideas, and your own voice, right? So like they all unanimously agree on that. But what I found really interesting about the feedback, and another thing, oh, I see Snorkel. That's so funny because I just met with them on Monday, Holly, and I love Snorkel because they're getting immediate feedback in the moment. But this is okay. Let me rewind because I want to start with this story. So I asked my students a few weeks ago. I love to give them controversial questions. I think that when we ask, is AI cheating? It's the wrong question. Instead, I asked the students, if you used AI to check your homework and tell you which answers are correct and which answers are incorrect, is that cheating? This caused the biggest debate I've ever seen in my life. And some students are like, no, that's not cheating. My mom checks my homework. So why would it be any different if the AI checked my homework? And another student said, it was Ocean. For those of you that were at FBTC and met Ocean, he said, that is cheating because my teacher wants to know what I got wrong. Because if the teacher thinks I got everything right, then they're just giving me harder and harder and harder work. And so if they know that I didn't understand something, then they're going to know that I'm not ready for that next challenge. And then another student said they didn't think it was cheating because when they used the AI to say if it was correct or incorrect and they saw that it was incorrect, they go, oh my goodness, I know exactly where I got it wrong. and they know where they made the mistake, and in that, the in the moment feedback is what they feel like will help them never make that mistake again. And when you wait too long to give them that feedback, then they don't care anymore because they've already moved on to something else 2 days later. So the bigger question and problem here is that students don't even understand what the purpose of the assignment is. And teachers need to be having these conversations with the students. What's the purpose of homework? What's the purpose of the assignment? Because if they don't understand the purpose, they don't know if they're cheating or they're not cheating. Poor Ocean could be getting instant feedback and having the aha moment and moving forward, but he's thinking that's cheating because his teacher wants to know if he got it wrong.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
don't know what his
Mhm.
specific teacher wants because I didn't ask her. But unless the teachers are having these conversations in the classrooms on
Yep.
an assignment by assignment basis, students don't know. So yes, I think AI is incredibly one of the most valuable things, even to myself as a writer, is the feedback that I'm getting from it. But I'm going to tell you something that the students said, and I've been saving this from you, Holly, because I think you're going to be shocked. I practiced my FETC keynote in front of my clubs because I had a live audience, and they came to me when I brought this up. When should you use it and when should you not? They're like, Miss Winnick, you're never, you said this in your speech and it actually happened. And I was like, what? They're like, when should you never use AI? And I was like, you said it. And I was like, what did I say? Like, you should never use it to give feedback to students. And I did say that. I did. I always say the AI companies tell you that AI can help you create the assignments, right? And then the students will all go home and use AI to complete them, probably not all of them, some. And then the other AI companies are like, we can help you grade your work and give you feedback. And I would rather a teacher not give a student AI generated feedback. I would rather them teach the student how to get their own AI generated feedback and be like a DJ and pick and choose what resonates. But here's what my students told me happened last week. And this is why it's really important for leaders to lead clubs. A teacher used AI to give students grade and feedback, and then gave the students the grade and the feedback. And that was their grade. And the student was like, wait, they said to me, you're getting paid to give us grades and feedback. We want your feedback. We don't want an AI's feedback. And then they were like, it wasn't even good. Like it's something with like a transition from one thing into evidence. And then they called it out and said, but I don't need that transition. And it's telling me to do that, but I know I don't need it. And the teacher was like, well, that's the grade the AI gave you, and gave them the grade and didn't change it. And the kids were like livid. They were beyond livid. That's insane. So I just found this out yesterday. I haven't done anything with it. The first to know.
But let's add to that. We're all up in arms because students might use AI to write an essay, but it's perfectly okay that a teacher uses AI to write a lesson plan. How is that different? And so when we started coming out with these tools and everyone's like, oh, it can save teachers time. Aren't you saying the same thing? Aren't you saying, like, I went to college to make lesson plans. It's what I do the
But
best. I think it's my superpower.
I
And
don't
now, go ahead.
no, I think you could use AI to make lesson plans because if you're prompting it the right way, you're giving it your
As a thought partner. When
yeah.
you're thinking, like, well, I need some essential questions. Let me go over
Yeah.
here. Let me talk about some DOK questions. But to make the lesson plan itself completely before you do what those students said and get your ideas out on paper, from there, yes, use it as a thought partner. But what people are doing right now is filling out a form and saying, I teach 7th grade pyramids of Giza. Give me a lesson plan. I don't know. I cannot figure out how that is not cognitive offload.
Well,
That
if we're talking about student cognitive offload, again, we need to reflect the mirror on ourselves.
Yeah.
And we need to look at our own cognitive offload. And I'm not saying you shouldn't use it to help you design more engaging, interesting lessons where technology is enhancing learning. I think it could be incredibly helpful. But you shouldn't, just like you wouldn't want a student to cognitively offload, you shouldn't do it either. But you also definitely shouldn't do it for the feedback and just say, oh, well, that's AI, what the AI gave you, and call it a day.
Okay, so I know we're talking a lot about this, and we'll just run through the last slides. But so this happened to my friend. His child was doing a seminar for the AP class, and she wrote it all at home. He made sure of it, all the things, and then the teacher gave the AI feedback. And the kid used the AI feedback and put that in as part into her seminar, and it came back from the AP that it was 100% written by AI. And she like is in this whole legal thing right now. I don't know if it's actually legal, but almost about to be legal, about her using AI. And she's like a 14-year-old, nah, maybe she's 15 or 16, but who's going through all of this stress because she knows she didn't use AI. And we've heard this story before, but like we have that going on as well, where the teacher used the AI, the kid used that AI feedback, and then it took it and tagged it as being from AI, which it was because the teacher used AI. So that's really significant as well. And Elaine says, if you don't know how to teach, you won't know what a good lesson plan is. I'm with her. Elaine also lives in the LA area where she's hearing all of this stuff that's happening in LA Unified. And LA Unified is usually the first to crash and burn on something. They're known for it. They crashed and burned on iPads when they brought them in. We learned later that iPads are okay, but they brought it in way before anyone else, crashed and burned. They brought in a chatbot that wasn't like a school AI chatbot, crashed and burned. And now they're going to take technology out of kids' hands, and it's probably going to be another crash and burn situation.
That's funny because sometimes, they say with innovation, being the first at something isn't always the best.
Yeah.
And that's why I did hold off before I purchased anything, because I want to make sure that I was picking the right tool. And for me, I wanted to get AI in the hands of students and not just teachers. And so that was my lens when I was looking. But there's some areas you want to be innovative in, and there's some that you might want to wait just a moment before you do anything. Seems like one of them right now.
And if we quickly move through the rest, but I want you to tell all the stories you want to tell, Alana. But if we quickly move through the rest, like the other AI moment that I've talked about is a checkpoint. This can also be really problematic if it in fact asks for too many steps or asks the kid to not interpret some things and just has it check like maybe how you write a sentence. I've actually had kids complain about that they didn't like what the AI gave them when we had it help them with the sentence. And they all said that the AI came back with the wrong sentence. They were fourth graders. And I really believe, and I haven't had a chance to go back, but I don't think that the AI did that. I think that the kids were just like one kid said, oh, it wasn't good. And they all jumped on that wasn't good bandwagon. And I think that we have to really look at the data, and that's when it can become a problem. You need to watch this checkpoint. What are you learning about the kids from this checkpoint? You can't just have it and not look deeply at the data to inform your next teacher moves, as I call them. And the other thing on my strategic.
Wait, can I address something that Stacey just said in the chat? She said that students are using AI to write their assignments, and they just take the PDF test and put it in. And what I just want to point out there is that if a student wants to cheat, they will always find a way to cheat. I don't think that AI is the cause of cheating. I've always believed that there was a major problem in education ever since I was a student. And for me, AI is just a catalyst for a much needed change that always existed anyway. And the problem is the assignment itself. And if you stop assessing the end product and you start assessing the learning process, then you won't have that problem. But it's about us redesigning the learning tasks for students and not the other way around.
And it's not easy. And that's why we're having some.
Use AI to help you, right?
Well,
that's a great use of AI.
Yeah. And that's why we're having the pushback we're having, because like if they don't have the AI in class, then if we take all the technology, then I don't have to redesign my learning task.
Right. So, that's not preparing students for their
future. Right. I'm just saying that's why teachers are like, oh, it turns out technology is bad. Does it? Or does it turn out that you might not understand how valuable it can be for background knowledge, for mental hooks that kids have, like all of the things?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir with you and everyone in here, but like, but this is the really important part that we have to make sure that we're talking about, because the scaffolding and support, it's the only way that we can get away from this reliance that they're going to do the writing. And I watched a kid do it in New Jersey the other day, and he sat there like this. He had his paper open, his Google Doc blank. He went to ChatGPT. I was in Starbucks, and then the only reason I noticed what he was doing, because every time he would go to ChatGPT, he would go, oh, oh, and I was like, what's going
Oh,
on?
you told me that story.
Yeah.
I remember.
And that's when I looked over and I was like, oh, he's using ChatGPT. But here's the thing. What I saw as I watched that, I saw the obvious thing we're all talking about. But I also saw this kid get super excited about whatever it is ChatGPT was giving him. And so how do we harness that? Like, how do we take that paragraph that he was like, oh, and then be like, okay, let's dig into that, or something different, because that kid was loving every second of it while also cheating and not going to have the skills. I would guess he was at 16 years old. So that means he didn't have the skills to do or desire to do that paper in the old fashioned way. But I don't know what happened. Like, maybe he was getting some really good stuff that I don't know, but I just know that watching him go, and I was like, how can we capture that? Whatever's
Yeah.
happening over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
always look
think
at things like
that
that.
Patrick put in the chat that it's not easy. I agree with you. I actually did create a lesson redesign. I have a lesson redesign challenge. And when I work with teachers like all over, and when I do workshops at conferences, I have a lesson redesign challenge, and I created a custom GPT in school AI, in a school AI space. And I put in some examples of, I'll give you one example, a persuasive essay and transforming it into a TED talk. Maybe that one's a little bit bigger of a lift, but I have many examples of research essays into podcasts. And I gave it a few different examples. And then when a teacher wants to take a more traditional lesson, it could help them redesign it. And we'll ask them, like, how long do you have for this? And it's using it as that brainstorming and that thought partner. So it is difficult if you can see a few different ways and then have your own thought partner or brainstorm partner, such as AI. It makes it a little bit easier, and it will give you a bunch of ideas, and then you pick and choose what resonates with you, and it will help you build something that resonates with your philosophy of teaching.
And that brings us into this next point as we end with these last two ones, Alana.
Wait, I want to just say something about scaffolding and support. So
Okay.
So we have a very large non-English speaking family, but ENL population as well. And for me, like, AI is life-changing for them. They now have complete agency over their learning, and they're not sitting around waiting for the ENL teacher. They're able to translate the content into their native language. They use all different AIs on their own, whether it's school AI space to engage in the content. They absolutely love Notebook LM. They take the resources that their teacher's giving them, they put them into Notebook LMs, and they make explainer videos in their native language, and they're really able to keep up with the content knowledge. And they don't need to wait for someone else to create these resources for them. They're present in their class in the moment, and they have live translation in their ear, literally, and they're engaging in the content in their native language. Those students who have language barriers, and now you're learning about topographic maps in science, like, they don't even know what that means, right? No, most students don't know what a topographic map is. So it's really leveled the playing field and provided access. I have a student in one of my clubs who is autistic and has a one-on-one, and she almost had a meltdown this week in my club because Notebook LM was frozen and wouldn't make her video for her. And for her, it is life-changing that she can make her own explainer videos and not wait for her aide or her special education teacher to create leveled resources for her. And she is in elementary school. So it's an amazing scaffold, and I just need to point that out. Sorry.
No, it's an amazing, and it takes us into this research and synthesis, because that's synthesizing what you learned and putting it into a notebook. And I think we need to be talking a lot more about notebook LM. I do work with some schools who are really they really don't want students to do it because they can make their own notebook and they think it's giving them access to AI. But I feel like that's missing a big opportunity. And they're doing that when they're like middle school students and stuff. I'm listening. I want to hear both sides of the argument, but I
I
love what
I
you're
see,
telling.
Randy, it's on School AI. I can't post a link in here. So after this, I'll like put it on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'll like, or X, whatever. I'll post it somewhere so you can find it, and I'll give a shout out to Holly's webinar, so you can find it. And then I see that you're right. I think when we cut the screen time without thinking through the support, that's the problem. And that's why in my digital wellness initiative, I'm doing that initiative with my director of student support services, because it's the social, emotional, and student support services plus the technology. That's where digital wellness lives. And we cannot remove the screens. Like, and the
No.
other thing about this is I had middle school students tell me this week when I was like, when should you or shouldn't you use it? We were talking about access. They were saying that the teacher comes around and tells some students, the students that have IEPs and 504s, you don't need to, if you need to listen to this article, it's available for you to listen. They're like, why can't the whole class listen to it if they choose that that's a way that will help support them? Why are we only giving accessibility features to some students when the reality is, Holly, I know you and I prefer audiobooks and podcasts, and I don't have a learning difference, but it's
Hmm.
how I retain information better, putting on an AirPod and going for a walk.
Yeah.
I, Sorry, I could probably.
I had someone ask me this week. I said, I listen to my books. And then the person said, do you consider that reading? And I was like, oh, I can't. I
Yeah.
just don't have time for this right now. My answer is yes, I do. It's not decoding,
Yeah.
but is it intaking information into my brain? Absolutely. Anyway, so I want to just say, as we look at this last two, the research and synthesis, that a really important part that I haven't had time to talk about yet in this series is that we were, and I don't know if second graders are going to have screens anymore across the nation, but we were using School AI with second graders, and the kids were able to write a very good paragraph in probably under 30 minutes. And so if a kid can write a paragraph in second grade in 30 minutes, that means they can write 250 of them this year, probably. I don't know, that's really a hyperbolous number, but a lot more than taking it always the very slow way. I'm not saying forget all the other things. These kids actually still wrote on paper. They still did everything they were supposed to do, but the AI asked them questions about that paragraph. And then after they thought through the paragraph, it gave them sentence starters and they wrote a paragraph. If you can write more paragraphs, you will be a better writer. And so one of the second things on this research and synthesis is that students learn significantly more in less time. We're talking about all these literacy scores being low, and so we need to take out the technology. The truth is the answer is the opposite, because we can give them access. We can give students who have been typically are low learners, we can give them access to the things that they need to take in this information. And if we just understand that a kid will read better when they have background knowledge, first and foremost, then we can give them that background knowledge through a quick 5-minute activity on a chatbot. And then we will see better reading scores. But people just are not thinking about the pedagogy because they're in that level one of DOK and recall, and they're putting kids on screens to do the recall. And I had another parent tell me, well, my kid does really good with Lexia. And I said, your kid answers questions good with Lexia. Your kid cannot be synthesizing. Your kid cannot be in level 4 DOK for those of us who are educators. And so what you're at is level 1. And yes, maybe she answers questions better now. But does she understand the reading? And every time in Lexia, they dish up a new thing that kid doesn't have background knowledge about.
Yeah.
And so we're stripping the learning from it, and that's just problematic. So the last thing that we're going to talk about, and then Alana can tell
You
any.
know, I don't really have much more other
Okay.
than for research. All I really have is like that what my students always say is that not everything the AI tells you is true, and you need
Yep.
to back it up with a reliable resource. And they know that if they're getting information from AI, then they're going to find a credible source to back that up, because it's not always true, and that's so important for them, to whenever they present with me, that's something they want to share because it's so important.
And in a place where we're using AI, both of us are doing it, we find kids saying that all the time. And so the kids who aren't saying it. So here's an example that we're going to get to in this creation and production, the great way to use AI, but a great way that it can be a problem. So these kids are using, they're second graders. These kids won't get technology if LA has their way, but they're making a image in Adobe and in Adobe Express, and they're using that image, or did use that image, to write a story. And so this becomes really important because you can see all of the words this kid comes up with. Purple, one enormous purple eye. And every time the kid adds these details, the image changes. And that is an example of using AI to give students who lack this technical skills to match their vision. That was me. I can only do stick figures. I can draw a house, I can draw flowers, and I can draw a heart. And so if you ask me to draw a picture, because that's what I'm going to base my story off of, I can't. I don't have the skill. So this elevates creation and ambition, and we've seen it, all of us who've used creativity in the classroom. But where it can be hard are in the making sure the scaffolding's there. Don't just use AI and be like, here's a blank piece, a prompt. You've got to scaffold them into being able to understand. And these kids now know what an AI image looks like, and they have that stuff that they need. So fix is never the tool. These people who are saying that we need to take technology out of classrooms, they don't understand it's the task. It's the task. So poorly designed AI tasks could be a problem, but well-designed AI moments will make that go away. And the question to ask is, does the task make students the thinker? Or does it let them skip the thinking entirely? I'm going to say it because I can. I think that there's no chance that Lexia gets kids to think deeply about the reading. It allows them to answer the DOK1 questions. But someone, if you know different than I do, because I stopped looking at it about 5 years ago. But we just really need to think about the task. And I think when we didn't say, yeah, that's not the kind of technology we want, now when the fingers are pointing, we look at that. And things like iReady is not being sued because they were a bad program. They're being sued because of the data. And I'm not saying that they're a good program. I'm just saying they're being sued by the data.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think like when we look at this last part right here and we talk about, we were talking about creation and production and like the fixing the task, right? I want to leave you with this story of the Florida school that just presented. And we haven't posted the video yet, but they really, the way that they use AI was the most impactful I've ever seen. So they have an entrepreneur class and they built a food lab, a cafe in their school, like an actual business. And they built a custom GPT with a knowledge base of everything from like the recipes. And so when the new students are coming up as freshmen and they don't know how to make the empanadas, the recipe is in the knowledge base. And when the teacher's helping another student do something innovative that's higher order, the teacher doesn't need to waste their bandwidth, or the student doesn't need to waste a question to ask about ingredients or what temperature or how long to cook the empanadas, because the data is in the custom GPT that they built. And then and so like I use those examples from, it could be down in elementary, kids have lots of questions, and my students always say like, the worksheet can't talk to us, but the AI can. If my teacher's helping someone else and I can't interrupt them, then I just get stuck. But I could ask the AI for help and I could get unstuck and go on. But this was to like the next level of a high school entrepreneur class. And then these students vibe coded the back end of their business portal, and they save 10 to 15 hours a week on all the business components that go into this business. They've generated over $100,000 this year on this cafe that they have. And they're using AI like in such cool, innovative ways. And they only have one teacher. And this whole program is run, all day, and the teacher can't help all of them at once, and they're building the AI that's helping themselves really and helping the future generation of the students that are coming up. And I thought that was a really awesome way. So it's about redesigning the task that we're asking our students and not making, and also like Amia spoke yesterday at the summit. You guys should really check it out. But they say if we give them meaningful tasks, they're more likely to want to put in the work and put in the thinking. When we give them tasks that are just skill and drill or like basic read this, answer these questions, and we're not asking them to relate it to their own selves or their lives or apply it, they don't care as much. And that's when they're going to use AI to cheat. So I don't know. That's all I have.
When we use AI to cheat, quite frankly. Yeah, and we have a Florida teacher in here, Patrick, who you were just kind of commenting to, comes from Stuart, Florida. So, or school that he works at is in Stuart. But anyway, so we're gonna get going because we took an hour, and I meant for these to be a half hour, but I keep getting such great guests that they never turn out to be that long. But you guys have all stayed, so we really thank you. Just to remind you, next week I'm going to do a thing with Snorkel, and I'm going to show you how to use Snorkel. So it's part of the short list or the Infuse short list for the people who said, I want to learn Notebook LM, I want to learn Snorkel. So that one's coming up next week. It's on the 28th. No. Yeah, the 28th. And then, I might have two. Let me look at my calendar right now.
You should definitely go, guys. I was blown away when I first saw it.
It's the best.
It's amazing.
So it's interesting. I think I have two things on that day. I'll figure it out. I'll send out an email, but I have Snorkel, and I have something coming up with Andrew from Magic School, because I was really interested in the way that they're giving students agency. I have been using School AI mostly, but I always want to stay up to date with what are all of these apps doing. And I really like some things I saw with the student agency. So it might be something to look at, because if you're a School AI person, maybe you haven't seen how Magic School
Yeah,
is.
I mean, I am a School AI person, and that's the one feedback that I've always said to them is there is no agency. My students can only use the spaces that their teachers create for them. And yes, they can technically use Gemini right now under 13, but I like to see what they are writing. I want to know what questions they're asking. I want to know if they're asking higher order Bloom's types questions or the lower level questions. And you can't see that in a platform like that. And I know that we were talking about what you were saying about Magic School, and maybe that platform does offer it. So
yeah. And so I just never want to be closed to knowing what people are doing. I'm really liking Brisk. Like and it just doesn't matter. And honestly, I feel like I can do most of what I need to do in all of them in the free version. Shh, don't tell them. Anyway, so we'll be doing Snorkel. I'm going to be having Andrew come on from Magic School to talk about that student agency. And then on May 4th, I believe it is, and I might have these dates wrong, I'll have Matt Miller on, and we're going to talk about his new book and how, in ways that he's bringing AI literacy into high school classroom and also other classrooms. So anyway, thank you for coming, and thanks you for watching all the other ones. Like, they really have high watches. So thank you so much, and have a good, what are we, Wednesday evening, I guess. Thanks, everyone.
thank you, Holly.
Oh, thanks, Alana. I will tell you after too.